Kevin says that in your last post you said that you make controversial films. How do you keep from exploiting your talent? Well, I did a little bit of preparation for this question, and the main thing was to start out with the definition of exploitation. And that's not me getting defensive, it's me being real. And the definition of exploitation is make full use of and derive benefit from a resource. So let's kind of get into that main frame of mind and kind of put aside the negative context of the word exploitation. So we're not talking about taking advantage of, we're not talking about misleading, we're not talking about deceiving. We're talking about exploitation. And as a production company, my job is to exploit talent, whether it's actors or crew or marketing representatives or distributors or whatever. My job is to exploit the resources that I'm presented with. So in effect, when I put out, or when the company puts out a casting call, it is pretty clearly saying what's there, but the message is, please apply for me to exploit you. And when an actor or crew person or somebody else responds to a call, they're saying, please exploit me. So, and that is a good thing. Exploitation of labor means that everybody's benefiting, because the talent is exploiting the company for their benefit, and the company is exploiting the talent for theirs. So there should be a mutual benefit to that. So now let's get into the idea that I do not avoid exploiting talent, but what I do avoid, or what we do our best to avoid, is taking advantage, deceiving, or somehow misleading people or tricking people. Because that's not good. That's a bad vibe. It's a bad spot. But how do we do that? Here it is transparency, transparency, transparency. Sometimes people will even say that's too much transparency. So understanding from day one what the expectations are for whatever role. Let's talk about actors, because I think that's kind of, Kevin, where you're going with that. And if not, I apologize, but I'll assume actors, because that's the big buzz right now of things going on with actors being taken advantage of or tricked. So from day one, through the initial conversation, we talk about the expectations of the role. And with controversial films, by nature of being controversial, that means that they've got some type of content that some people may object to. So it may be language, it may be a specific philosophy, it may be sexuality, it may be nudity, it could be any number of things. But from the get-go, from the spot, it is talking about those things that they might object to. And then encouraging the talent, the actor, to communicate boundaries or communicate discomfort, and then respect that. Not threaten, not try to talk somebody into doing something that they aren't willing to do, etc. So and that conversation comes very early, and it's been a policy of ours from the beginning that we do that, and to make it clear that we're not going to change anything, but respect the fact that you may not be comfortable with that philosophy or that action or that situation, and to understand that that's not a bad thing. That's not you're not a bad actor. You're not a pain in the neck because you have boundaries, and we definitely respect that. And so many times through the type of work that we do, because oftentimes our work does have hot button political topics or sexuality or nudity or language or particular religious or spiritual views, to encourage people, if it doesn't feel good for you, don't do it. Don't do it. We're not going to write your name down and never work with you. But just don't compromise your boundaries. Don't ever do it. Not for anybody. And so, and I'm pretty proud of that. So how do we keep from taking advantage of or misleading or tricking people is that. So what happens when things need to change a little bit or something's not looking good. I've got a really good example, and it comes from Butterfly Short. And there's a scene toward the second third of the short film, around 30 minutes, I guess, where Travis and Davis are sitting in a locker room having this conversation about things that are going around, or a conversation or things that people are saying about Davis. And it was written for these guys to be sitting on the bench in the locker room just having this conversation. And when we looked at it, it didn't make a lot of sense, because how often do guys just sit in the middle of a locker room on a bench very stagnantly and have these really deep conversations? Not very often. So I talked to the actor, who happens to be Andrew Van Camp. It's like, this isn't working. How can we work through this? We got to be doing something. This stationary, stagnant scene is really boring. What can we do? And so the idea was that guys are usually in a locker room. They're taking care of business, then they're getting the hell out of there, right? That's what they do. So the idea was how about if one of them was just like sitting waiting on the other one to come out because they're going to go, but the other one's getting out of the shower and he's getting dressed and he's like having this communication. There's something else going on other than this really deep, unrealistic conversation. And we talked to both Andrew and Jake about that, and Andrew was like, yeah, sure, as long as I don't have to be too out there, I don't mind. Because that makes a lot of sense. It looks better. It's going to help with just the way the whole scene is. And so we talked about it. We blocked it out. We made sure that there was nothing that compromised Andrew's professional or personal boundaries that was in the film. And eventually there was that partial nude scene in there. There was a very short scene, but there was a lot of conversation that went along with it. It turned out well, and everybody was happy because there was no trickery and there was no anything else. So I think communication is the great thing. So I guess the question that somebody may have is, well, what if people were saying, well, what if Andrew and Jake both looked at it and said, no, I know the scene looks bad, but we're not comfortable. Well, what else can we do then? Because I'm not going to like pull the rug out from somebody. There are all kinds of things that go along with getting into somebody's personal space in the film. There's paperwork, there are contracts, there are agreements. When you have anything like that, that has to be signed and agreed upon and explicitly explained. You can't just come in and say, okay, all of a sudden you're going to do this, surprise. And that is to make sure that everybody is okay with things. So I hope that I answered the question okay. I hope that I went in the right direction. I hope I gave a really good example, but it doesn't just have to be with physicality or wardrobe. It can be with anything, with language, with intent of a scene, with violence. It's important that you communicate with your actors, and if anything's going to change, or if you have a different idea, or if from the beginning there's something that you know may be problematic or challenging for people, you should communicate that from the very beginning. So the way that we avoid exploiting our talent is what we don't. We absolutely unabashedly stand on top of the mountain with whatever kind of tablets we need to have and say we exploit all talent. That's our job. But hopefully nobody ever feels like we take advantage of our talent. So there's the answer to the question. Kevin, I thank you a lot for asking it. I think it was a good question and maybe opened up some dialogue. I hope that you guys are at least entertained a little bit about these videos that I'm trying to shorten up, but I'm long-winded. But please subscribe to the channel. We're up to 25, 975 more to go. I thank you for tuning in, and I look forward to our next conversation. If you haven't seen Butterfly Short yet, go check it out and pay attention to that scene so you know what I'm talking about. Hopefully that's not what you get out of the whole film, but if so, okay, at least you got something out of it. So have a good one. Thanks.